Make him stay, Merv. Don't let me leave, Merv. Don't let me leave, Merv. No!
Would that it were so simple, trippingly.
You don't say trippingly, say the line trippingly.
Would that it were, would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple.
You died.
I died.
A little bit.
For how long?
7 minutes.
A bit less.
I died for 7 minutes.
A bit less.
Approximately.
Proud of their jewelry, but of nothing else. Horrible. Faded, fat, greedy women.
They're alive. They're human beings.
Are they?
Now, that was not necessarily brought to you by the Republican National Convention.
Oh, I see. I thought he said faded, fat, and greedy.
Oh.
The Cinemaniacs.
Wait a minute.
I'm Mark.
I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs.
Cinemaniacs. Faded, fat, and greedy.
Yes.
Not really.
It's Diet Coke, Diet Jolt. Please, if there's anybody out there, make Diet Jolt. That's all I need.
Diet Jolt?
See, it's the caffeine is what I like, but I don't need the sugar. So, as you can tell, we don't have 15 movies to talk about this week.
I saw a couple of them.
As did I.
Want to talk about them?
Sure, we'll talk about them.
Go ahead.
Matt Damon and Julianne Moore and a whole herd of people you've likely recognized and heard of, and George Clooney directs them, for that matter, are living in just an idyllic, is it idyllic, little community when all sorts of things start really kind of happening wildly. Are we discussing America, or are we discussing just kind of a small little place they like to call Suburbicon?
Showtime treat to equal the crisp, delicious flavor of hot popcorn that's bathed in real melted butter.
Okay, now that looks really funny.
Yeah.
I was so looking forward to this. Matt Damon riding away in a little bike. This is not a comedy. I don't think there was anything that I can recall funny about it. I think this trailer so misleads you, and that's not the job of a trailer. A trailer's job is to get their butts in the seat. But this trailer is so misleading that I went into this and spent the first half hour thinking, what movie am I watching? Because it was in no way, shape, or form funny. Now, from the Coen brothers, so about half an hour into it, I started realizing, okay, this is one of the Coen brothers' darker films. But there's a subplot about, basically, the overall scheme is Matt Damon seems to be involved somehow with the mafia. They're out, some bad guys are out to get him. His wife is killed early on, and so he has to raise his son motherless. And so he gets his sister-in-law, who played by the same, so looks just like his mother and blah, 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 the mother and the wife, to move in. And there's this whole rigmarole about insurance and stuff, and did he kill the wife to get insurance or not? And there's that whole big thing. That's the overarching thing. And about 1 minute into the film, a black family moves in next door, and oh my God, it's like the world is going to end, because here's this, unbeknownst to me, I guess I didn't know if this was going to be a Edward Scissorhand kind of contemporary but set in the 50s movie or not. This is clearly set in the 50s. And throughout this entire film, as we're watching Damon try to figure out Damon's character and the family try to figure out, oh, is the insurance company going to pay on the insurance of the wife's death and blah, 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 and all of that. All of a sudden, we'll just cut to this horrible racism going on with this black family that moves in next door, which, in my opinion, had absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the film. So I just thought, I went into Suburbicon really looking forward to it. Oh, George Clooney directing and Matt Damon, it's going to be great. The Coen brothers writing it, it's going to be great. I thought this was a pretty worthless piece of junk. So there you go.
How dare you? I didn't really care for it either. Okay. It had a great look to it.
Sure did.
I would say everybody in it was
Performances
good.
were great.
It was well made, but for me it didn't quite work. And it
didn't work at all.
Partly it was okay. I saw the trailer and I said, "Ooh, this is going to be a zippy comedy written by the Coen brothers, directed by George Clooney, who has directed decent films in the past." Mm-hmm. And I kept waiting for the laughs, and then I realized, so okay, this is not a comedy. And then I saw what it was, and it it didn't work. Now, you could say that maybe the story about the family being persecuted next door was to say these totally innocent, nice people move in and everybody is up in arms, while on the other side of that fence are completely evil people who you have no problem with because they look like you. You could.
Okay.
This was shot a long time ago, but you could draw Charlottesville parallels if you wanted to. But it's trying to make a point about racism and persecution, but it's like literally off to the side in a movie that's about murder.
I didn't understand what that had to do. I see your connection.
You keep going. It's one of those movies where you have these two separate things, and you're focusing on the Damon family, and then you cut to the family next door, and you're like, what was happening with? Oh yeah. And then you start to get involved with them, and then you cut to the Damon thing, and you're like, okay, what was going on with them again? So yeah, to me that aspect didn't work. It not being funny isn't necessarily the movie's fault. That's the trailer leading me to believe something else.
Yes.
That's okay, fine. It's really unpleasant. Like, it's all pretty much nasty characters. And there's this innocent little boy who's in the middle of it all.
And his uncle.
And his uncle, who's a nice guy. And just the rhythm of it didn't quite work for me. And, how much more unpleasant is this going to get in a movie? And maybe it's all my expectations. I was expecting something that was a little, sunshine with a dark undertone, which this is. But, I don't know. It didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
And I had heard going in, most people who had seen it and were vocal about not liking it. So I expected, my expectations were low, but I can't say that I hated it as much as you did or disliked it as much, but it was one of those movies where before it was over, I was just kind of done with it. I'm like, okay, let's move on to the next film we're going to see.
Let's do that then.
Shall we?
We should.
So, if I may.
You should.
Here we have a sequel, just when you thought it was safe to be a not quite decent person and maybe suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous, highly contrived and contracted revenge, back comes the man who made the Saw series so worthy of seeing. Saw. See? It's called Jigsaw.
Oh, and he's back.
A tender tale of
Isn't it,
familial love, loss, and innocence.
Well,
Savannah
not
Smiles.
innocent. See, that's the thing.
Not this movie.
That's the big thing.
So I never liked the Saw movies. I
did.
I saw the first film in the theater, and I was like, "Ooh, good concept," but that didn't quite work for me. So they made another one, and I'm like, maybe they'll do it
And then
better
they
this
made
time.
8 more.
And I'm like, wow, I really didn't like this one. I think I'm done with these. And everybody was like, "Oh, Saw 3, it changes everything. You've got to see Saw 3." So I bought it used at Video Headquarters, and I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like that one either. So I stopped. So this is a sequel. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, very good.
That takes place, in modern times and all that. And it's more of the same. Not having liked any of the other ones, I did not go into this with any expectations. I pretty low expectations, actually. And I thought it, as a person who doesn't like the Saw movies, I thought it was fine. It was extreme gore and practical effects, which was cool. It had a twist most of the way through the movie. I had 2. There was one big surprise, and you're like, wow, how is that possible?
Right.
And then later when you find out how it's possible, it's either extremely, fine line between clever and stupid. It's either very, very clever or hack writing, and I'm not sure which. Because to me, you can make this big, long story and all of a sudden say 90% through a film, oh, that character, he's the devil himself. And you're like, oh my God. Or it could be at that part of the script, you just said, let's make him the devil now.
Right.
It's not like some of these things were planted all the way through. It looked really good. Like this did not exhibit everything I hate about modern horror movies. It was nicely shot and lit and cut. It was really, you could really ogle those portions of bodies that you were caressing with the camera and everything. So, and it was also not very long, thankfully, unlike most films these days. So I guess I'm praising it by saying I didn't hate it and it wasn't too long.
Okay, I'll go into it saying that I always did like the Saw films, primarily for a couple of reasons. One of them was for those of you who are fans of the Saw movies, you know that Tobin Bell, who is Jigsaw, dies in like the 3rd one or something like that. But after that, I kept watching them because of what I thought were the extremely clever ways they would bring him back.
Narrative gymnastics.
Right, he comes back on tape. Ooh, he comes back on video, or he comes back some other way. I don't know how. And so when So I went in to see that as to whether or not that happened in this movie. And then I also watched them because of the whole deal with Jigsaw in the Saw movies was Tobin Bell is this guy who was going to die of cancer, and so he saw it as his job to go out and right all the wrongs of people who committed sins and evil. And they had sort of a chance, but most of the time in the early movies I thought, you don't really have any chance to escape these traps. And I thought the traps that he created were really clever, how they connected to what the crime or the sin that he thought these people had committed. And so that's why I kept going to the Saw movies. This one, I agree completely with you that performances overall are pretty good. It looks terrific. If you take a look at the old Saw movie, which was, I think, James Wan's first film, and clearly shot like on 16 millimeter. It's got that dirty, intentionally so, I thought it fit with the movie. But this one looks as slick and as professional as possible, so I did enjoy that. I was disappointed in, and I thought the trick that to which you're referring, we're hedging our bets because we don't want to give anything away terribly much.
Better if you don't know.
But the trick was clever, but I still didn't think it worked for me. Yeah. Now maybe it almost makes me want to go back and watch it again, knowing what I know to see if it works a little bit better. So I didn't think it edged on the schlock side of things. I thought it edged more on the clever side of things. But my ultimate complaint was all of the traps and tricks and everything weren't really tied together. So this felt like a crazy guy out to kill people.
In the
movie.
barn of blood.
Right, as opposed to what I considered kind of the cleverness of the earlier Saws.
But, okay, this applies to all of the Saw movies.
He's been working on this for
all the
weeks.
ones that I've seen.
Yes.
No, I just wasn't listening while you were talking. I figured it just now.
Oh, okay.
It's not true.
I thought you were doing the segue into our...
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to that. Don't you worry.
Yes.
We have plenty of time. I can just go on and on and on. So with the Saw films, it's all about Jigsaw is punishing people for misdeeds in their lives.
True.
How does he know?
Yeah, that is
How does he know? What happened with the woman who was his next door neighbor? I don't think that's giving anything away.
Right.
How did he know?
Right.
It's like you're in a locked room with no doors and no windows, and he's like, "Oh, I knew what you did." What are you drilling
He heard
holes?
something, but
You had an impure thought in 1983.
Right.
How does he know? Anyway, that's just occurred to me.
Okay.
But I'm very appreciative of
what he does for them.
What he does for them.
For our society.
God. And what you do for all of us. I'd like to. Well, I'll save it for off.
Okay, you're bridging it. I'll let you. Well, anyway, here we go. Miles Teller is back. He's not stretching around or anything like that. He's just an average guy, but one of those wonderful heroes who supports our country as a troop over in Iraq. Back he comes with his team, suffering through some difficult times and trying to integrate into society, as is the case with most of his team. And we're going to take a look at a film that, for all of those of you who are out having serviced our country and helped us maintain democracy, we would like to thank you for your service. So, Teller's been in some good movies and some bad movies. He's, I think, working his way into becoming a more serious actor. I've been on the fence as to whether I like him or not. You had a rather appropriate description of him, which we won't pass along, that I can kind of agree with. But ultimately, I think I like him. And this movie proves that he's strong enough, I think, to helm a major role all by himself. Because this is pretty much about him and his family, his wife, and how they deal with the PTSD that he experiences. Have we seen this story before? Sure, a zillion times. And once again, I feel bad saying this about a war film, like I've ever been in one, like I could ever do a tenth of the things that these soldiers do. Absolutely not. But this was interesting enough in his performance and some of the smaller things that he and the people around him have to deal with as they try to integrate back into society. So I thought there was enough smaller things that made it interesting enough that I'm not going to get down on it for. It's the same thing we've seen a zillion times. Is it The Hurt Locker? Yeah, it's pretty similar to that. Is it Heartbreak Ridge and even whatever the newer one was about ridges? I don't quite remember. So they do kind of all sort of blend together.
Yeah.
But he's strong enough, and if you like Miles Teller, I think this is worth seeing. I think this could be a real interesting. If you're a huge fan, certainly we're seeing the vistas and the cinematography is stunning. I think either way, certainly we're seeing if you want to reserve it until you get out on video.
2 questions.
Yes.
For the benefit of our viewers at home and me who didn't see it. Is it told linearly or does it jump around in time a lot?
It bops back and forth a little bit. It's not terribly confusing though. I don't care for flashbacks and things like that. I'm always one. Particularly if story or character is brought out, then why don't we just start the film back there? But there's a logical reason for that, obviously, as he's dealing with these things. It's not so hackneyed as, oh, he has nightmares and things like that, and we experience something and he wakes up in the middle of it.
Hacksaw Ridge. Thank you.
Hacksaw Ridge, very good. Well, thank you. I helped you with that.
Maybe.
I don't know.
You said hack.
Hack, yes, hack need.
Speaking of hacks.
My knees need to be.
No. Also, is it terribly graphic, a film?
Not certainly so much as it could have been. It's not any more graphic than Jigsaw, let's say that.
Oh, okay. Well, Hacksaw Ridge was like one of the glorious films I've seen.
So no, it doesn't dwell on that. In fact, I kind of respected the way it implied a lot of things.
Okay. Just for folks who are curious if they want to bring, the grandma and the kids to see the film.
It's not for little Joey, but
okay.
I don't think Grandma would be too terribly offended by it.
Little Tina may love it though. So we'd like to thank our friends at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for sponsoring us and allowing us to see such fine films as these in the theater. And now we move on to that which is available on home video on the platform, device, or service of your choice. Remember when we used to just say it's on tape?
Yeah, right.
It's on disc? Yeah, gone
on
the
video.
days. First up, if I may, no more monkeying around. We have the third and latest and last episode in the new saga of those lovable, tree-swinging, banana-loving folks in a planet that is slightly similar and slightly different than the one we currently live in, the latest series in the combative saga, The War for the Planet of the Apes.
Should never put bananas in the refrigerator.
I'm not a fan of that, by the way.
I'm not a fan of these.
Oh, see, I like these a lot.
Okay.
I love the originals. I grew up with the
yeah.
originals, and I love the whole Apes world from back then. So that when there were started to be remakes, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Because the Burton one was not so hot.
Right. No, I didn't like the Burton one at all, really.
Few do at this point, at least, especially in retrospect with what's come after it. But I've liked these new ones a lot.
Okay.
And when this one came out, Keen Cinemas did a triple feature of all three, and it was interesting to see, if nothing else, how the technology has just leapt like a monkey from a tree to another tree that's really far apart from the first tree, in terms of how visually believable these digital apes are.
Okay.
So here,
I can see that. I'll still fly back to in 1968. I still find that makeup pretty viable.
Oh, I still love
the
those.
originals.
I got no beef with the originals.
Okay.
Although Battle, not very good.
Well,
movie.
yeah.
And that's what I was saying about this. If nothing else, it's going to be better than Battle was.
That's true.
We
yeah.
finally have a good version of Battle.
Right. Okay.
Because Battle was. The deal with we have time. The deal with the original Apes films, you make Planet of the Apes. It's huge. You make a sequel. Let's cut the budget a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And with every subsequent film, they kept cutting the budget to make more money. And by the time
Right.
you had Battle, the fifth film, it's a bunch of school buses and jeeps and some smoke in a
army guys.
field. I mean, like, what is this? Is lame. And there are episodes of the TV show that had more production value than that did. Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. So this is the third chapter. At this point, humanity is making its last stand. There's a military encampment in this film that has a lot of apes hostage, or it's like a POW camp, basically. And they're trying to eradicate the apes. And Caesar leads a band of brothers, very hairy brothers, to go in and try to, open the floodgates and take care of this bad guy. It's very, very similar to Apocalypse Now. They're going up the river
Right.
to get this crazy, maniacal, bald-headed general, basically,
enough.
played by Woody Harrelson in this film, in the Brando role. And there's even a visual, text visual reference to that in this film. But the effects are really good. Like, there were times where I'm watching this and I'm like, did they have real apes and they just digitally put a face on them? Because
Right.
they look like in the first film, they still have that floaty.
This was made by
physics
the
don't
robot
apply.
chicken people, I think. Yeah, so
I
they just
don't-
put them on mouth.
Yeah, it's like Clutch Cargo. It really looks damn near real in this.
Yep.
And I never believed that there were actual apes they trained to talk in this film, but everything about them, except maybe the lips, really looked like it was really present in our reality. And CG, for me, often doesn't have that. This is not a terribly lighthearted film, as this series has not been.
Right.
There is a character that we were talking about that everybody
Yes.
likes that is a flat-out comic relief
And
character.
I thought he was great, yeah.
Who was very funny, which I did not expect. I just thought this was really good. It wasn't. I don't think it was good as the previous film, but it was certainly. If they stop making these, I will believe that they made 3 new good Planet of the Apes movies, and I like that they're different enough from the originals that they kind of stand apart. They do these. I said doo.
You said doo-doo.
They also do these things that I don't really care for, where they try to slip in references to the other films, be they
Right.
character names or place names or requoting lines. That takes me right out of these movies. I wish they wouldn't do that. It's not, to me, it's not clever. It's clever if it's so deep a reference that I don't get it until after the fact. But when they just repeat lines from the original movie, I'm like, and now I'm thinking about a film from the 60s and not
Okay.
what I'm watching right now.
I can see that, yeah.
At any rate, I like this. I own the other ones. I will buy this on Blu-ray at some point, so I have the trilogy. There is a thought or talk of another film. I'm not sure what more they can do with this at this point. There was talk that maybe they would essentially remake the original Planet of the Apes, so you would, because in the first of these,
Right.
in what was it, Rise? Dawn? I don't remember the order these go. In the first of these new films, in the background on a TV, there's a report of a spaceship being shot,
Right.
into the air, which is supposed to be the, essentially the equivalent of Charlton Heston's ship from the first film. But there's no point to doing that after you've made these other films.
Right.
The original movie was us as an audience trying to, along with Heston, coming to terms with this insane society where apes rule. Well, we've seen this for like 6 hours now. So
Right.
are we just watching somebody react to that the whole time? It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I liked it. And what did you think?
I haven't disliked these movies. I haven't been crazy about them. My question is, why remake them? In my opinion, it seems, well, yeah, money, obviously. The only thing that is really different is the CG, which is absolutely spectacular. So I'll give it that. But story-wise, you talk about Apocalypse Now. I see it as a blend of Apocalypse Now meets The Great Escape. And the only thing that's different is it's Caesar. It's an ape. Well, yeah, so what? I'm waiting, and I won't hold my breath, but clearly the Academy needs to give Andy Serkis his own Academy Award.
It really is quite a
eventually.
performance in this movie.
It's unbelievable what he does as these CG characters throughout all of filmdom that he does. So I'm always interested in that. I thought it was impressive. I loved our comedic character. Woody Harrelson always kind of stands out to me. I don't consider him to be the greatest actor in the world, and so I see the actor as opposed to the character. In the long run, if you're a fan, you're right, that if you're a fan of these Planet of the Apes, this is a great culmination, and it gives you everything that you've seen before and more. But if you're not, like me, I can kind of take it or leave it.
Well, you're a real doll for saying that.
But bump. Moving on, see, he works so hard at these, so we have to give him a few kudos. But speaking of which, dolls, not kudos. You ever wonder how these evil dolls come about? I'm sure you did. Any dolls, I think, tend to be evil. But there's one in particular that has been the subject of many, many films. And we're going to go way, way back onto the farm, not where Clark Kent grew up with all of his parents, but similar people have a little girl. And they got her this wonderful little doll. But she meets with a troublesome end. And the parents invite everybody back and open their homes wonderfully to a bunch of religious kids. But unfortunately, not only did these religious kids go into their home, but so did a demon in Annabelle creation.
Doctor named Captain Oogie who can transfer human souls into plastic dolls to give them lifelike characteristics.
Does her head turn around?
Creepy. Nope, nothing like that yet. It's interesting, sort of like the Saws. It's interesting how they keep this thing going. Now we're going all the way back to the beginning, which is okay. Like you're worried about the doll, but one of the things about prequels is that the doll survives, so there's no way that these people are going to be able to destroy it. I thought performance, what ultimately struck me with this was you've got these parents, these farmer parents, who invite a bunch of wayward Catholic girls. It's a Catholic school, and their instructor, nun, real young. She's like 20 or 24, something like that. So, oops, here you've got these real religious people. Nothing can go well with that when there's a demon doll in the house. So the premise is there. I thought performances throughout were really strong. You've got these little girls, and some of them are very emotive. So ultimately, that's what I found to be both, not necessarily different, because I've always kind of liked the Conjuring things. I think they're okay. The Warren stories and all of that. But ultimately, if you're a fan of The Conjuring, you're going to get more of what you like with this. It's not quite as scary as a lot of them. There's, unfortunately, I guess to say, there's more thinking going on with this movie.
I don't go to a movie to think
what the heck?
Or read.
Right. But in the long run, what I was most appreciative of was really strong performances in this.
A lot of jump scares?
A couple.
Okay, I hate that.
Yeah, I hate jump scares.
I didn't see this. I haven't liked any of the Conjuring-related movies, but I do appreciate the ingeniosity, if you were,
right,
of the setup for this. In the beginning and/or end of the first Conjuring, you see the Warrens' house where it's all of their trophies from all their various investigations.
And there's a bazillion things.
And I'm like, you can make a million movies. And at the time, I think everybody thought you could make a movie about any of these, and they can. So it is actually brilliant. If you keep the same kind of look, feel, and tone to all these, you've got a brand that you can put at the top, or you can work it in there and just keep going forever. And maybe one day I'll see one and like it. Speaking of seeing it and liking it, didn't see this one, so who knows if I would like it or not, but I'll introduce it to you because damn it, I love you. Al Gore is back, and he has a follow-up documentary to that one he did several years ago for foretelling doom and gloom. And here he gives you an update on said doom and said gloom in an inconvenient sequel.
People start pollution. People can stop it.
Hi.
We do start to wonder.
We do start to wonder.
Personally, a big proponent of this. I agree completely with certainly not the stuff at the very, very beginning that we saw with a certain Republican candidate denouncing it all. But so the first movie, An Inconvenient, what was the original called? An Inconvenient Truth. Thank you. I thought was an interesting film, presented in a real interesting way. This is what I was. So on the negative side. This time, it's more information. It's certainly a downer. It's important that we see it, but I didn't know for whom this was made because it's really, I think it's got to be preaching to the choir.
It's kind of see?
Right.
Sequel?
To the crazy Republicans out there and everybody in the Midwest who voted for Trump who, say, oh, no, none of this is true. They're not going to go see this. And to the people who have half a brain in their heads and understand that this is really going on, they're probably going to be the ones who are going to go see it, but you're not going to change them. So, in some respects, like a lot of the religious films that we've seen, I'm not sure for whom this was made. The information, the updating of the information was interesting. On the positive side, what I was struck with, if you're a fan of Gore's, if you tend to agree with him, I was struck with how this man has truly dedicated his life to getting this story across. So I respected that about it. It's very well made. Certainly shows the direction in which, and this was made, I'm pretty sure this was produced before Trump came into office. So it's clearly following just the Republican agenda in many respects. It certainly has enough negative Trump stuff in there to point a finger at the man. But there's overall the story is much wider, saying, look, this is really going on, people. We've got to get something going. So it's kind of more of the same, but I thought it was well made. And ultimately, if I'm left with something, it was just a little bit more respect for Gore and his dedication to getting this across, if you like him or not.
I saw the original and thought it was good and terrifying and depressing. I did not see the second due to time constraints and perhaps not wanting to be any more terrified or depressed. Sorry.
Well, like I said, it was October 28th or something like that. Last week, the first game of the World Series in Los Angeles, and the game started at 7:05, I think, and it was 103 degrees. Yeah. So, really?
And we're up to about a hurricane a week.
So if you're going to be letting people know this, I'm not going to let them even get into it. If you're going to be letting people know this and you're not talking to them, you might be sending them texts or something like that, and you want to show them whether they should be happy or not about it. You might send a little kind of circular or different kind of size thing along with it to let them know. Well, in the world of that time, there's one guy who doesn't want to be special. He wants to be like every other guy in the Emoji Movie.
If you have a problem with your Wi-Fi, here's the Wi-Fi you've been waiting for.
Really? Unlike the previous film, which I was unclear as to whom this movie was being made, for whom this movie was being made, this is quite clearly being made for people about this high, about that tall, and nobody else. Completely untrue. I mean, not totally untrue, but there's a little bit there for the adults. But this is one where, if you're going to the theater or if you're sitting there watching it at home, you're paying your dues. You're getting some people out of purgatory if you happen to be Catholic, even though purgatory doesn't exist apparently with the Catholic Church anymore. But yeah, there's not a lot there for the adults. This is clearly for the kids. Perfectly acceptable, but I'm amazed at how there have been a couple other films, and I don't quite remember what they were recently, but one was like with stuffed animals and things like that, how these animators so struggled to create unique, supposedly individual characters with all of these animated films that we're creating. And so they struggle so hard to create 4 or 5 unique emoji characters with this, and it just kind of didn't seem to work for me. It was very pretty. You and I love lots of pretty colors and everything like that, so that was fun to watch. Other than that, the Emoji Movie is pretty much what you're seeing. It's a silly little movie made for kids.
Would you say in any way this was similar to Inside Out?
Yes.
Because that was
that's
one
the
where
one I was thinking of. Very
each
good.
emotion has its own little thing, and they embody that emotion, each character and all
Right.
that. This looked stupid to me, so I didn't go see it.
Now, strangely enough, when I watch things on home video, I don't like to have like a lot of this going on. I'd like it to, be easy to see the TV screen. There's a particular place that I like to watch movies when I'm at home.
Oh, it's the living room. It's Living Room,
It
the
is.
movie. No. Here we have a reissue of a classic, which can mean many things, including black and white and from the 30s. Universal film starring Boris Karloff, Raymond Massey, and some other people you may or may not know. Where do you not want to go on a stormy and not well illuminated night in the middle of nowhere? Well, my friend, uncle, and sometimes pastor, you do not want to find yourself in the old, dark house.
But that's where I like
If
to
you have any questions at all, please contact us at outdoorlights.com.
Ooh. So this was loads of fun. Here's one where I'll thank you for getting our. Is this from some of our friends over
This
at
is from our friends at Cohen Media Group.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
They have done. We've reviewed a few things they've put out. They do a mix of like classic and foreign and contemporary foreign indie stuff. This is. I was surprised that it wasn't put out by Universal because this is a Universal.
I'd never seen this in the
picture.
theaters either, that I recall.
No, I think it is now making the rounds. Now that they did this 4K restoration, there's a DCP that is playing in theaters if a theater wants to run it. But I'd love to see this in a nice old theater. Somewhere like the Colonial or the Latches in Brattleboro, where it's a theater that was around back when this movie came out.
Right.
It is literally an old dark house movie. These people are in, 2 couples are in a car in the middle of nowhere. It's torrential rain, much like we've had here this weekend, and everything is flooding, and they basically managed to steer their car via the mud flow to this doorstep of this old house. Not Bob Vila, an evil Bob Vila. Although Karloff,
he did kind of look.
if Bob Vila was cutting something with a chainsaw and he hit a knot and they kicked up back into his face, that would be Karloff in this film. Boris Karloff is in this film too. Not long after Frankenstein, you have the director of Frankenstein, James Whale. You have Boris Karloff. You have the actor whose name escapes me, who played Dr. Pretorius, who is a wonderful character in Bride of Frankenstein. You have Gloria Stewart, who modern viewers would know as the old lady from Titanic. Melvin Douglas, who was in a million movies and was Ileana Douglas's grandfather. Raymond Massey, who was on the old Dr. Kildare TV show, and probably more people than I can remember. Oh, Charles Laughton, who you may have heard of. It's a great cast. It's beautifully shot. It's like a classic Universal monster movie, only there's no overt monsterage as opposed to just the human monster in this film. So it's an old family in this house, and one or more members are just crazy. And basically they're warning these people, you really don't want to stay here tonight. And they're like, we really have nowhere else to go. And they're like, okay, you can stay here, but it might not go so well for you.
Right.
And it's this wonderful mix of like lightish 30s humor. The Melvin Douglas character is sort of a slick playboy wisecracker guy. And some stuff that to me was legitimately creepy at times. Now, a modern audience could look at this and say some of it's kind of hokey and stagey and funny. And I saw a little of that, but I just watched it, in my bedroom with the lights off.
You can't go into it with that idea.
If you go into old movies with that lame attitude, then okay, fine, you're superior to adults 70 years ago.
Right.
Win for you. I had a really good time with this. It looks fantastic.
Sure
the new
does,
restoration.
yeah.
It looks great. The atmosphere totally worked for me. This is a great Halloween movie. I watched it a week ago, and this was actually released on video last week, so it's out now. And a boatload of extras, which I sadly didn't get the time to explore, but I know there is a Gloria Stewart commentary recorded conveniently before she died, and there's some other little documentaries and behind-the-scenes things on this for more context. But I had a really great time with.
Yes.
I was going to call it This Old House with The Old Dark House.
I agree completely. It looks terrific. It's great fun to see a lot of these folks that I remember from my childhood, being major stars. So it's fun to see this thrown back. Again, it looks wonderful. And you're right that particularly, and this is kind of unfortunate that we have to qualify it, but in consideration of when it was made, I still agree with you that it stands up as being noticeably creepy at times. So I liked this dark house. This old dark house.
This old dark house
quite a
with
bit.
those old dark shadows. Sing along if you know the words.
Yes.
Up next, we return to my favorite corner of this studio.
Maybe your
and
favorite.
program.
I don't know about me, but
we'll
have
talk
to see
about
next
that.
time.
Depending
on what the shot is.
The Arrow Video Corner. Oh, you're not your favorite because he always tends to bear the brunt, right in the old package of that.
There we go.
So we have the Arrow Video Corner, as we say. Up first is a film that is a late 60s, early 70s. I'm a little off on the date. I'm sorry. I'm a little off in general today. Film by director Lucio Fulci, who you may know better as the director of such classy family films as Zombie and other gory, gooey, goopy Italian fright films. Here we have a giallo that he did, a bit classier than a lot of what he normally does, and it's got the sing-songy title, sing along if you know the words, Don't Torture a Duckling.
Clean and sanitary, right down to the grungies. New toilet duck. Nothing fights dirt like duck.
The old dark house. No.
There's a moment of silence
Now we're
for
back. Yes.
those we've lost
All of
since
those
we started
people.
this program. We've lost 3 people in the studio. The studio audience just.
One of them's over there.
I think it was bad broccoli. At least it smells like it was. So this is a film that Lucio Fulci made early on. Not early on in his career, but before he made the films he's been known for now.
Okay.
And it's always been my favorite of his films that I've seen. I've always felt like and some people will have a beef with this, but I've always found his horror films generally to be really pretty hacky, not very good, and just ham-fisted gore in your face.
Why the title?
Why the title?
Oh yeah, what's about torturing a duckling?
I don't remember why this film would be called that, but the giallo films often had these odd titles like Black Belly of the Tarantula and Your
And
Vice,
there's no spider
Your
in this
Vice
one.
is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. I love the titles for, and people are making like neo giallo films now, and they're giving them The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. They're giving them these really wild titles, and I love that.
Cool.
I love giallos in general. To me, again, giallo is like a spaghetti western. Overall, I like the trappings, or bad kung fu movies. I love the trappings of the genre, so even if it's not a great one, there's enough in there that I like. But this, for me, was always my favorite Fulci movie that I've seen because it's stylish, it's got great music, it's pretty well shot, and it's calm. Like, there is gore in there. When the bad guy gets his comeuppance, it's pretty weird and gross and odd, but it's overall restrained. And, speaking as a manly male type person, there's a scene with Barbara Boucher that goes on for about 3 minutes that if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And that just makes it more pleasant, really. So basically the story is that somebody is murdering children in this small Italian village, which is not a good thing. We frown upon that. I think we both can say we frown upon that as an organization here. And they're trying. So the police and the local are trying to figure out who's doing it. And there are various suspects. And there's this woman that you see in the trailer who's they consider her a witch and they assume she's putting a spell on them or doing witchy things or baking them in a pie or something like that. And it may or may not. I'm not going to say whether it's her or not. But it's very interesting. It's fun. It's an Arrow release, so the film looks gorgeous. It sounds gorgeous. Loads of extras. And I would highly recommend it if you like giallo or Fulci. If you've never seen it, it's pretty interesting. So that's all the time we have for this week. We'll return talking about Thor and maybe not much else next
Probably
week.
not.
Until then, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
The Cinemaniacs.